This is a review of the PT111 G2 9mm by Taurus. Safety check. Chamber is empty. Magazine is empty. For the specs on the gun, it has a 3.2 inch barrel with a 6.24 inch overall length. It is 22 ounces unloaded. It does have a fixed front sight with a rear sight that is adjustable for elevation and windage. It is a double stack 9mm. It does hold 12 in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber for 13 rounds fully loaded. Overall look at the gun. It does lock back on last round. Manual slide release. It does have a thumb safety. When in the up position, the slide will not move and cannot pull the trigger. When down, the red shows that it is ready to fire, and you can fire. So, manual thumb safety. It does also have the trigger blade safety, so you cannot fully depress the trigger if you're not pushing down on the blade. Magazine release sits slightly above the grip. It's not completely flush. I have had no issues with accidentally dropping a magazine while firing, but the release works well. See, it falls out pretty readily. To disassemble the gun for field stripping, you have to pull the slide back slightly, pull down this lever, then I pull the trigger as push forward, remove the slide, and it's the same kind of breakdown you see in most semi-automatic weapons. Remove the guy rod and spring, and it is a dual spring, and remove the barrel. When reassembling, I've seen some people make this mistake and then start complaining about how awful Taurus is because the guns don't work when you reassemble them, but it's just the fact that they did it improperly. And you place your guide rod and spring back in. You cannot leave it sitting on this first ledge. It must be placed there. If you leave it sitting here and you force the slide back on, your slide, you will not be able to rack it. So you've got to make sure you get your guide rod back in the right place. And then it's just a matter of lining it up and pulling it back on. The grip on the PT111 G2 is extremely well done. It is almost like having grip tape on the firearm all the way around this grip. It's got a great feel to it. It really stops the pistol from sliding around in your hand. In fact, this job they did with the stippling is probably the best I've felt on any pistol from the factory. I mean, they did a great job on that. With the magazine in and the pinky extension, in my hand it fits perfect. I have medium-sized hands, so for me it just fits very, very well. The ergonomics are good. I might want the grip to be a little bit longer. It'd be nice if they had a back strap, like an extension you could put on there. But that's only because of the trigger, which I'll get to a little bit later. There's small indentions on each side of the pistol. When the finger's not on the trigger, it's perfect to rest my trigger finger. And when I'm gripping, the thumb's forward grip, it's a nice place to set my thumb. I'm going to cut now to some shooting footage. I did go to the range and I loaded a mix of ammo, a mixed magazine, so you could see the gun cycling. I had 2 rounds of 115 grain solid copper hollow points from Colt, 2 full metal jacket rounds of Perfecta, 115 grains. I had 2 full metal jacket 115 grain Remington rounds, but I don't have the box because I'd fired off all the ammo, but there were Remington. Then I had 2 rounds of Independence jacketed hollow points, 115 grain, and finally 124 grain Federal Hydroshock. So I'll cut to that footage now. As you can see, there was no problem cycling any of the ammo. In fact, I have never had a failure with this firearm, and I have put now almost 900 rounds through it. I have not had a failure with any kind of hollow point or full metal jacket from any manufacturer. After I did the mixed magazine, I did a magazine of full metal jackets, just a mag dump rapid fire. You can see that footage. When I was done with that, I did a few more magazines just of trying to show a little bit better aim. This next clip was a 12-inch target. I took a little more time, and I actually used my sights. The first 2 magazines were just point of aim, but here I decided to use the sights and try to do a little bit better job. You'll see the rounds will still go slightly to the left sometimes, and again I'll talk about that when I talk about the trigger, but overall it was a better job. And then went back to a silhouette target and again use the sights to try to get a better grouping. So now you've seen the shooting. I went over the specs. I want to kind of go over my impressions of the firearm and what I like and dislike about it. First of all, the good, it is a double stack magazine, so you get more rounds than you do in a lot of the common self-defense 9mm, where you get a 6+1 or maybe a 7+1 or something like that, and in here you're going to get a full 13 rounds. And even though it is double stack, I don't have a shield with me to compare it, but you can see it on other videos. It's almost the exact same size as the shield, except for a longer grip. So even though it's still small and compact, you do get that double stack magazine, and most people like to have a higher number of rounds. As I talked about the stippling, the grip on this is just absolutely fantastic. It just feels so good in the hand, and it helps prevent any movement or slight movement when you're shooting. So I love the grip of the gun. I like how it fits my hand all the way. My pinky does not hang off. It just feels really good. The sights, I like that there you have adjustable sights. They're not bad. They are a 3-dot system. You can line up. I did have to adjust the sights as they came from the factory. They weren't quite on, so it just took a little bit of shooting and tweaking until I got them adjusted. I like the magazine release. It's a good magazine release. It falls easy. I guess now I'll talk about kind of my biggest issue with this gun, and it is the trigger pull. The trigger for this firearm, when you first pull, there's a lot of slack. It's a lot of slack to get to that break point. And when you do, it's a very heavy pull that's very deep. Okay, so I find a lot of times, especially on my first shot, that when I'm going to pull that slack, I have to take it up, and then that heavy pull, it makes me jerk a lot, and I'll pull down. And I know that's me, and there's a lot of people who say they have no problem with it, but for me, that deep break after that long slack just really throws me off, especially on that initial shot. Now, the good thing about the trigger is the reset. The reset, and you can hear it right there, is very short. So follow-up shots are much better. And if you go back and look at that original video, or the first shooting clip, you'll see my first shot was really low. And that's because I took up that slack, hit the brake, and I pull, and I tend to do that a lot with this pistol. But my follow-up shot was much better because I had that short reset. I didn't have to go through that slack again. So the reset on this trigger is fantastic. It's just that initial pull. It really is offsetting to me for some reason. I have a real hard time getting used to that, even though I've put over 850 rounds to this gun. Again, the reset. It's audible, you can feel it, and it's very short. The other good thing about this gun is there is no requirement for the magazine to be in to be able to fire it. If you accidentally dropped your magazine when you were shooting, and there was a bullet in the chamber, you could still fire. There's no magazine disconnect. And I hate magazine disconnects, so that's really good. Also, even though this is, when the slide's racked, it is single action pull. If there was a misfire, a light primer strike, for some reason the slide didn't reset, you do not have to clear it. You can go into double action mode. It has a double strike capability. So the round chambers, light primer strike, you have to come all the way back out to reset, but you can double strike, and hopefully the round would go off again. You wouldn't have to clear. So that's another positive about the gun. So overall, I actually really like this firearm. I do. That trigger is the only thing that prevents it from being really a favorite for me, is that initial trigger pull. That slack is just so much slack to hit a heavy break. That's the only thing that really just makes this from being my preferred carry gun. But other than that, it's a really, really good pistol, and a lot of people that they get used to that trigger pull, they don't have a problem with it. That's more of a me thing. And I think if you had bigger hands, like my hands are medium size, but people with bigger hands, I think it would really be hard for them to pull that trigger, because it's so deep back, because the grip isn't really wide. They're going to be right in the crease of that finger. I think if your hands were any bigger than mine, I have a hard time keeping it on the pad of my finger as it is. But people with bigger hands would have a hard time. I think it would cause a lot of pulling. And you'll see on the Taurus armed forums, a lot of people when they first get this gun and shoot it, they complain about it being low and left. And that's not really the gun. It's the shooter. It's the trigger. It's people jerk that trigger, especially on that initial shot, and even on follow-up until they get used to it. So just keep that in mind. If you have larger hands, it might be an issue. But other than that, it's just a very reliable firearm. I have not had a failure at all, and it's been really impressive to me, because I shoot some cheap ammo like with the Perfecta and some Gecko and some other really cheap rounds, and I've not had any problems with them at all. So it's fed incredibly well. It ejects every time. It's just been it's extremely reliable. So rating it, reliability, I would give it 5 out of 5. It's just a very reliable gun. Ergonomics feel, I'd probably give it a 4. I do think it could be a little bit wider, but the grip is fantastic, and it just feels real good in the hand, real good weight. Especially when you got a fully loaded magazine, it's very well balanced. For the trigger, I would give it a 3, and I'm only going to rate it that high because of the reset. I mean, the reset is great. So it's audible, it's so quick, you don't have to go a long way out, just such quick follow-ups, but that initial trigger pull really brings that rating down. If it had a trigger like the Shield on its initial pull, I'd give it probably at least 4 out of 5, but that slack and that heavy deep break kind of bring it down for me. Yeah, but overall it's a very good gun, especially for the price. I mean, I think the price have actually gone up on these lately. They were running at just over $200. I mean, they were like $215, $220. I think they may be up to like $250 now online, without, then you have to pay your FFL fees and all that, but still extremely affordable pistol. So I like it. I think it's good. So if you're looking for a budget semi-auto, I think this is a good choice. It's going to be reliable. It's going to work. Except carry, this would work extremely well. It's going to give you 13 rounds and reliability. As long as you fire it enough that you're confident you're not going to have a problem with that trigger, then I don't see any reason why you couldn't carry it. I do carry it sometimes with an Alien Gear holster, and even though the grip's a little bit longer than most other typical concealed carry 9mm, it's not been a problem. I haven't any problem. It's not uncomfortable. I haven't any problem with it staying concealed. I think you just have a good holster, you'll be just fine with it. But yeah, I do carry it from time to time. It's just probably not my main carry piece. So Let me know what you think. Good luck. Stay armed.